Okay, folks, today we are going to start a new unit with some notes. It occurred to me, though, that I don't think I had you add the last activity, number 11, to your daily distance learning checklist, so I'm going to do that as well. Remember, I posted that April 6th, I think I posted it. It's distance learning checklist, yep, posted April 6th, so you can go ahead and open that up. We're going to actually add number 11. Which, I don't know why it says number 10. It says number 10. Number 11 was the Science Daily. Was that what it was called? I already forgot. Number 11, Science Daily article. So it was just an article I found about the use of forensic anthropology in the crime-solving world. So we'll put the Science Daily article, and for that you had to read the article and submit your answers to your responses in a Google form. Okay, so then today's activity will be notes on forensic anthropology. So forensic anthropology notes, and that is oh, I'm missing a letter. That looks right. It's, oh my gosh. Anthropology notes, and that will be in a Google Doc. So your Google Doc looks like this. It should be attached to this assignment. The first thing you're going to do, which I'm not going to do with you because it doesn't make any sense for me to play a video through a video, is you're going to watch this video and answer the 3 questions. So go ahead and pause this video. Excuse me. Pause this video. Watch this video. Answer these questions, and then come back and we will start this part together. Okay, now that you've answered those 3 questions, we're going to get started with our notes. So we already did those 3. So forensic anthropologists, their job is to analyze skeletal remains to determine the identity of a victim as well as his or her life history, cause of death, or other clues about a crime. So, main things that they're looking for when they're looking at bones is they can determine the sex of a person, male or female, usually determined by using the skull, the pelvis, the humerus, and or the femur. The femur gives you some information as well about the sex, oddly enough. The next thing they might be looking for is age or stature, height and build of a person. So it can be determined by analyzing the development of the teeth, bone growth, the length of some of the long bones, cranial suture lines, and the length of specific bones, such as the femur. And the last thing here it says is it can also be used to determine race by determining there's like an analysis of the skull that has certain common characteristics that are common among people with different races. So if you look at this picture up here, it says which skull would belong to a female. So we have this one has a larger mastoid process, which is this knob that sort of sticks off where it would be basically like under your ear. Excuse me. A brow ridge that's pretty defined. And then this one is a smooth, more vertical frontal bone and a much smaller mastoid process. So which one do you think would be the female? And then down here it talks about which pelvis would belong to a female. So now we're looking at pelvic bones. So this pelvic bone has a very this is not a very good picture because there's only one. This one has a narrow subpubic angle. I'm so sorry. I have to edit this out. So this one has a narrow subpubic angle. This one has a narrow greater sciatic notch, which is where this is where the hip bone, or this is where the femur would attach. So it's kind of like behind-ish of the femur. And then a narrow pubic bone. I feel like I once upon a time had another picture up here, and it's not here. So this one is very likely the male because it's all the characteristics are narrow. The female would have wider hips, wider angles here, and the reason for that is because the baby, when a female gives birth to a baby, the head of that baby literally has to fit through this hole and out the woman's vagina. It can be very challenging for a woman as it is, let alone if they had a more narrow subpubic angle and a narrower pubic bone. So that is why women are considered to have wider pelvises. Okay, so what else can we learn from bones? So you should be following along. I'm just going to double check here. You should be following along. Main characteristics, we just did that. The picture's kind of wonky. What else can we learn from bones? So this is where we're at, just in case you are losing track here. So what else can we learn from bones? Well, sometimes you can get DNA samples from bones, which you can learn a lot from a DNA sample. Can be collected from bone, teeth, and hair to provide clues to a person's identity. Scientists may also be able to gain clues as to a person's past, recent injuries, and or the cause of death based on bone fractures. So, I don't know where my damage from a hammer one is. Apparently that picture has disappeared, but here's damage from a gunshot wound. You can see the fracture marks on the skull. Here's a healed fracture. So if you zoom in on this right here, you can see that there was, in fact, a fracture right here, and that it has since healed up. So you can see that on x-rays. You could see it in real life as well if you were looking at actual bones. So here is a second video I would like you to watch. Again, I'm not going to play it through here, but I'm going to have you watch that, pause this video, watch this video, and then come back when you're done. Okay, so now that you've watched that video, hopefully you have all those questions answered in your note sheet. The next page is identify the bones on the skeleton. One label will be used twice, so that's just an FYI. There will be one label used twice. So what I would really like you to do is to pause the video again. In your note packet, you will see this same picture on the next page. To do your best to fill in these boxes to the best you can. You have a word bank, so you're going to try your best. You can't currently, but I will, before I post this for you, I will add in text boxes to be able to hopefully, you will likely have to double click on this. I broke it. You will likely have to double click on this picture and it will bring you to an editing screen. I don't even know what that is. I have no idea. I don't know what that is. Okay, so I will play with that a little bit so that you can fill in those boxes. So you're going to do your best to fill these in. I will make them as editable as possible. I know I said that wrong, but I did that on purpose. So you'll be using these words to put them in the box, and then you can come back over to the video and I will reveal the answers. Okay? So go ahead and pause the video. Do your best to fill those in. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. So we're going to start up here. We're going to go one at a time. Identify the bones in the skeletal. So this bone here is called the cranium. That was pretty obvious. That part of the neck is what's called the cervical vertebrae. There's also a hyoid bone there, but the hyoid bone is actually a little bit lower. If you ever watch any of those crime shows, they talk about how they know somebody was strangled because their hyoid bone was broken a lot. They mention the hyoid bone, but it's a little bit lower than this dot is showing you. Then you have the sternum, which is like the breastbone. This upper arm bone here is your humerus. The next bone down, this is the bone that runs along your pinky. That's the ulna, is on the pinky side. And then the radius will be on the thumb side of your forearm. Your wrist bones are called the carpals. Your hand bones are called the metacarpals. and your fingers, which may or may not be on this side. Nope, I don't think you're, oh no, nope, I don't think your fingers are on here. Yes, they are the phalanges, look at that. Then you have the sacrum, that's this section of your pelvic bone. Excuse me. If you labeled that all pelvic bone, that's fine. Tibia, that is your shin bone, the bigger of the two shin bones, and then the littler of the two shin bones is your fibula. And then similar to up at your wrist, at your ankles, you have tarsals for your ankle bones, metatarsals for your foot bones, and then again for your toes, phalanges. If you're a Friends fan, that is where Regina Phalange gets her last name. Then back up to the top here, this is commonly known as your collarbone. It's the clavicle. This one here is actually pointing to the back, what I call your wing bone. It's called your scapula. It's like those shoulder blades. I call them wing bones, but most people call them shoulder blades. Here, these are obviously your ribs. This is another section of your vertebral column or your vertebrae. This is another part of the hip bone. It's called the ilium. And then this is the last part of the hip bone called the ischium. We already did the arm. So your upper leg, that's your femur. It's the strongest bone in your body. This is pointing to your commonly called your kneecap, and that is your patella. Okay. The other thing I put here is what's called the bone dance. You guys may or may not be too young or too old, or I think you guys might have been too young at this point, aging myself out, for Miley Cyrus's bone dance. I have always said that if someone wants to recreate the bone dance in a video or in class, that I would be happy to give them extra credit. Given our current situation, if you have nothing better to do and you'd like to learn the bone dance, I would love to have a video of it. So send it to me, and I will be happy to give you extra credit for it, because I would love it. Also, I need permission to use it, because I'm going to show it to every class I have for the rest of my life. So, the last part on your notes is same thing here. You should be able to, I'm going to make this more editable, so you'll be able to click here and fill these in. You're going to read this part, pause the video, read and do your best to give the common name for each of these actual bone names. That's spelled wrong. There you go. And then when you are done, come on back over to the video and you can get the answers. So, the answers here, I should have known it was going to be one of those days when I stepped out of bed and stubbed my toes. It should be toe because it says phalange on the nightstand. While hopping up and down on one metatarsal, which is your foot, and grasping the other, I slipped and fell onto my right shoulder, breaking my collarbone. As I crawled on my hands and my patellas are knees to my bed, I felt my cranium, your head, begin to ache. I found my phone and let my phalanges, or your fingers, do the walking as I called my friend to come help out. My friend answered the phone with a loud scream. My mandible, which is your lower jaw, dropped. I asked what had happened, and he replied that he had been startled by the ringing phone, fell out of bed, and landed on his coccyx. That's your butt. Following that, while racing to the phone, he hit his tibia, shin bone, on a stool. I should have known it was going to be one of those days. Okay, so the rest of this this PowerPoint is some kind of fun things I try to do in class that I did not or was not able to figure out a way to recreate. But certainly if you look through these, you can pause them. There's a bag of bones activity, which I have done in a smaller scale, not quite in this huge scale here. But then there's also the bone challenge, how fast can you put together a skeleton. So certainly if you want to have some fun with that, you have a printer at home, or you want to draw it out on paper and try to put together a skeleton, trace your little sister or brother and make them lay on the floor, whatever you want to do. Would love to see any and all of the fun things that you guys do with this. I just obviously will not be able to do them in class. Okay, so I hope all is well, and I will talk to you all soon.